I thought I'd make a quick screen recording of the results that I have for my just one class, and this is my advanced class, so I know it's not representative, but at least it will give you an idea of how you can analyze your data. I'm sure some of you will have a much neater system, but this is just me putting pen to paper as I'm looking at my individual students. So all I did was print out an attendance grid and label each one of my little columns with question 1, 2, and so on over to 7. Of course, the names are on this, so it's confidential. Once I had everything labeled, ready to go, I just started going through each student's quiz, their pre-assessment, and marking what they had for each question. It took me probably about 2 minutes to score each student's question, looking at their constructed responses and recording a score for that. Once I had their constructed response scores in, I went and I looked at a pattern of their results to decide if they were at a 3 or 3.5. And oftentimes, to be honest, it did match what they had scored on that constructed response question. So once I had all of my individual student data in with their scores on Learning Standard RL4 and their overall score on Learning Standard RL1 in here, then I went through and I looked at it at a standards-based level. And I just made a quick chart over here, Standard RL4, Standard Reading Literature R1, and just listed out 1, 2, 3, 4 with the 0.5s in there as well. And recorded the number of students that I had in each category divided by the total number of students. So you can see on the word choice standard, I have 4% of my kids at a 1.5, 8% at a 2, 28% of them at a 2.5, 52% of them at a 3, and so on for both standards. At the district level, we aren't quite to standards yet, so it's important to look at it at an item analysis level as well, and I just did that down here, went through and tallied the number of kids that had each one right, 16 out of 25 or 64% of them, 24 out of 25 or 96% of them, so that I have a clear pattern of results for each student for how they did overall. For example, it's important to note that if all of our kids are at 100% on this one, we probably want a harder question for next year. And as Lisa was pointing out in our meeting this morning, a lot of the students were marking B, so we probably need to look at an instructional strategy for teaching connotation versus denotation on that particular standard. And that's really what we want to get as a data team. So I've got my standards level analysis over here, which we'll use to do our SMART goal because that's what we're using for our SMART goals. And I've got an item analysis down here, so it'll really help us measure our assessment and make sure it's doing what we want it to do. If I'm looking at this for our meeting next time, and we'll take everyone's data and bring it together to come up with our overall percentage of how many kids are at proficiency or almost there. When I'm looking at it this way, I can see that I have 60% of my kids on RL4, for example, who are at proficiency. It probably won't be that high in my other classes. And I can see that I have another almost 30% who are really close. So we can probably say for those advanced kids that at least 95% of them need to get to proficiency or advanced on that standard. But it's great because you can also look at them at a student level too to really see where you can pull your students up. So that is my quick and messy way that I just set up my data analysis, and I think that that's what we need to bring to the table for Friday. If you have any other ideas, feel free to screenshot that and share it out. I put this one on our scoring guide that we worked on today so that I could screenshot it, but we would love to hear other ideas.